Hi everyone, I'm Ferd and welcome to my video. Let's just dig into it, learn some things about rings. Enjoy the video. My original intentions in this motor was just to replace the crankshaft in it. But once I opened up the sump and saw the oil black, thick, like it was a diesel engine, I started having some suspicions. Not only was the crankshaft bent, but it had some really deep scratches in all the journals. We all know that aluminum won't scratch steel, but this was giving me all the indications of worn out rings. I checked the rings. I put them on this side of the cylinder where you can see right here where there's no wear. So I know that that's the original size of the cylinder. And I measured the ring gap on it. The compression ring measures 30 thousandths. The gap on the scraper ring, the second ring down from the compression ring, measures 33 thousandths on the gap. As the rings start wearing, they create this sharp edge around the outer edge. These little slivers of metal start breaking off and falling and finding their way down into the crankcase. That's where the deep scratches in the crankshaft came from. Let's hone it, clean it up, get some new rings in it, and put it back together. The sides of this thing are so rough. I showed them to you before. I need to smooth that out, put my new rings in it. I got some hot soapy water. This is Dawn. Don't want to use motor oil. It just gums stuff up. And we're going to do it real slow. Get this thing locked on there. And I probably could have put a little more in there. Okay, that looks good. The hone that I use has a 3-inch stone on it. It'll do a bore between 2.5 and maybe 4 inches. And it is adjustable. I can adjust the tension on it to how hard I want it to press against the wall when I'm turning it. I always have the spring action as light as I possibly can. I got some brake cleaner. And I want to go in here and wipe these walls down really good. That aluminum has some black on it. It's just aluminum, man. It just has this black film on it after it gets sanded. I want to make sure I get every bit of that off of there. Take that brake clean, scrub it real good until the rag comes out clean. Okay, I've been wiping the heck out of this thing. Go one last time, and you can see that my rag is now coming out white. Okay, now that is clean. You could eat off of that. If you wash it with soap and water, that is. That's how we want it. We've put the ring in there, and we've seen that there's an 8 thousandths gap. And I want to figure out what size gap that I want to use for those rings. You could take a ruler and measure across the bore and measure it that way. This comes up to 2 11/16. And I'll show you on a calculator how to convert it to a decimal and come up with the ring gap. Or you can measure it with a micrometer, whichever way's best for you. If you don't have the micrometer with you, which in my case it's 7.5 miles up the road, I used the ruler and converted to a decimal. Let me show you how I did that. Okay, now we got 2 11/16. We want to turn that 11/16 into a decimal. If you go online, you can find all kinds of calculators to convert a fraction to a decimal. That's the way that I do it. This particular one, just go to this box here. We're going to put in our 11. We'll go to the next box down and put our 16ths in. You want it set for round decimals to thousandths. And hit the calculator, and we come up with 0.688. So now we have a number of 2.688. That's the measurement of the bore that we're going to be using. Now that we know what our engine bore is in a decimal form, there's a formula that you can use to figure out what the gap is going to be when you install your rings. We found out that it's 2.688 inches across the bore. Take that and multiply it times 0.004 thousandths. Hit the equal, and you'll come up with 10 thousandths, and then you'll have these other three behind it. Take the 752 and round it up to 11 thousandths, or in my case, I'm just going to go with the 10 thousandths inch gap. To keep it simple, I'll just leave it at that. This is the formula that I use whether I'm doing a chainsaw engine, a lawnmower engine, or any other kind of engine that I might be working on. This formula works well for me. Now, without having my micrometer, I want to check and make sure that I've got my measurement right and see how accurate I was with the actual measurement of the bore. This is the code and the serial number of the engine that I was working on. I'm going to look for these three numbers on this chart that I'm going to show you next. This is a very popular chart that you see on the internet that has a lot of specs for Briggs & Stratton engines, but it's kind of limited up to a certain year. Not sure what that is, but there are some newer ones that aren't on this list. But anyway, if you go to the very last row, you'll see the cylinder bore standard. I want to scroll down and look for the engine that I'm working on, which is an overhead valve single cylinder engine right here. And we're looking for that 120 with the 3 zeros behind it series. And this is it right here. If you scroll all the way over to the box where we're looking for the bore size, you'll see 2.6885. That's exactly what we came up with on the calculator, and it confirms that my measurement with the ruler was pretty darn close. Why didn't I use this chart to begin with? Well, I did. But if you don't have internet access or you don't have access to this chart, there's the formula. That's how you do it, and it works. I buy my rings from this place. It's called the Little Red Barn. They sell good rings. They're precise, good quality. I've used them before, and they work really well. The original rings that come off of the piston have a little circle on one side of them. This circle always faces to the top of the piston. When removing them, try to keep them in order from top to bottom with the circles facing up so you can compare them with the new ones that you're going to be installing. If they get mixed up, don't worry, I'll show you how you can figure it out. Here we're looking at 4 common compression rings. These are mounted on the very top. The way that you see them is the way that they would be installed. The second one from the left is the torsional. That's the one that I'm using on this one. This is the most common on small engines. And if you notice that little angle on the back side of it that faces inside the piston, that's the way that it would be pointing up towards the top of the piston. The rectangular one on the end, doesn't matter which side, it's the same either way. The second ring down would be the scraper ring. The one on this application is going to be the reverse torsional like the one that you saw as a compression ring. They're both the same. The only difference is the angle is turned in the other direction and it is facing downwards. On the bottom, we see the two oil rings. It doesn't matter which side's up, which side's down. Just put them in the way that you see them pictured here. If you want to learn more about piston rings, I'll leave a link in the description below to this web page that has a lot of information that could help you out. Or it's just a good read. Now that I know the position of all my rings, I can go ahead and install them in this engine. At Harbor Freight, they sell this set of tiny little files that works out really well. And there's a flat one in here. Let me get that one out. It's flat on both sides. We're going to use that to file our gap. In this set, you'll find two flat ones like this. One of them is actually a little coarser than the other. I want to use the finer of the two. Okay, I want to file this ring down to 10 thousandths. It's got an 8 thousandths gap on it, and I need 10. First, I'm going to lube it up a little bit around the edges. I've got my file. And I need a way to keep it flat. You want to try to keep them things perfectly square together. Squeeze it together with the file in between it and just give it a few pulls like that. Okay, that was like 5 times. So let me put this down in there. I've put one of my old rings in the center of my piston. So that way I can push it down to that ring and it's going to be flat, square. Get my gauge. And I need to go some more with it, which I already knew. I always want to just creep up on it. You don't want to try to do it all at one time. Put her in there. Usually takes me about 3 or 4 times to get it right. You get the point. I'll come back when I've got them all done. Okay, I've got both of these rings gapped at 10 thousandths. This one feels a little looser than the first one, so since I've got 2 of the same, and one needs to be flipped upside down and the other one flipped up, I'm going to use the looser of the 2 for my scraper ring, and then I'll use the tighter one with that angled edge facing up as my compression ring. Let me check this one and see what kind of gap I got here. I want to take this spring out of it. And we need to file this one too. Now another little tip. If you've got a piston that has a lot of carbon buildup inside of those grooves and you need to clean them out, take one of your old rings and break it just like that. And then you can use this to get inside and actually clean that groove out. And even as clean as this one is, I can see stuff coming out of it. Okay, we're ready to put our rings on. I'm going to start with the toughie. That's going to be the center ring. And we called that the scraper ring. Oil this thing up real good. And then I'm going to oil one of my rings up. Get some oil back in here. Got that oiled up. And if you remember, this one has the groove on this side of it. There's no markings for me, but I know that this groove, if it's going into the second groove, I want that to face down like that on the piston. I'm just going to put them on there by hand and hope that I don't break them. Let me get this first one down past there, walk it around, and it always sticks into that first one. Okay, I got the first ring on there. There's my groove. I want it facing up. And we're just going to walk it around just like that and snap her on there. Now we can work on our oil ring. We're going to put that up through the bottom. This one has a spring on it. And you can actually pull this thing apart. It has a short wire in it that'll let it expand and contract a little bit. I'm going to slide this down over there first. And I'm going to put that in the groove. Everything looks okay. I could take my oil ring. This doesn't matter which side's up or down. Okay, there we got that. Get it started down here on the bench. Work it up there on the groove. I'm going to put the back side down in there first, over top of that spring, and then work it around one side. Go around this side first. Right there, I'm going to get over top of the ring. I got that one in. And I can come around this side. Just need to work it over top of the ring. And there I have it. Now I'm ready to put the connecting rod on it. And on the top of your piston, there's an arrow. This, most all the time, points towards the flywheel side of the engine. That would be over here. We got it positioned this way towards the flywheel. And then down here, I want my connecting rod to be facing this way. This is the way it comes out. With my wrist pin already in there, I got everything positioned the way that I want it to be. Put my connecting rod in there, everything's lubed up, and slide that wrist pin through there. And then on this piston, we have this clip, and there's only one that goes on one side of it. There's no clip on the other. Pair of needle nose will get it. And we'll just get it down there the best that we can. Got her down in there. Be careful you don't cut your fingers. We're ready to put the piston in. We can take the crankshaft and go ahead and slide that in there. I'm going to turn it all the way down where it's in this position right here. Oil everything up again real good. We've got our arrow facing that way. You want the gaps to your two top rings to be facing up this way at 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock on the piston. You want these facing towards the flywheel. This is a horizontal engine, and when it's laid down that way on the sump, all your oil is going to be mainly draining to this side of the piston. If you've got your rings down here, the oil will leak back up into the cylinder head, and you'll have a smoking problem when you go to start it. I want to position the oil ring down here at 6 o'clock, like that. Let me get this side in. I'm going to push down on it, apply a little pressure, work it around. There we go. Okay, now I'm at my second ring. I want to get it turned up this way. Okay, I got my second ring in. Line her up right there. We're in. You have a long bolt that's going to go to the top. You have a short bolt that's going to go to the bottom. Torque those two down. Our rings and our piston are installed. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some good information out of it. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on the way out. I got a lot of videos up there. I got a lot more coming. Ring that notification bell. You'll get notified as soon as I put them up there. One thing I'd like to note about the beginning of the video, honing this cylinder in soap and water. This works really well for aluminum cylinders. The steel ones, you want to use the oil. Give it a try. It might work out good for you too. Remember to stay safe in the shop, get those tools out, and have fun. Thank you for watching.